A switch statement offers another way to execute different code depending on a condition. Before looking at real code, let's take a look at the basic structure of a switch statement. It consists of the keyword switch followed by a pair of parentheses containing the value you want to test. The body of the switch statement goes between a pair of curly braces. Inside the braces, the case keyword precedes the value that you want to match, and the value is followed by a colon. If the value passed to the switch statement matches, any code that follows is executed. In effect, this is the same as a conditional statement using if and testing whether var equals value 1, and on its own, it's a rather cumbersome approach. But you can test for multiple values by adding break at the end of each case and repeating the pattern. At the end of the switch block, you can add default followed by a colon, and any code that you want executed if none of the values match. Default has the same meaning as the else block at the end of a conditional statement. You can also stack alternative cases like this, so the code preceding the second break will be executed if var matches either value 2 or value 3. The effect is exactly the same as this control structure using if, else if, and else. There's no particular advantage in using one over the other, but a switch statement can be easier to read and maintain if you need to test for many options. So let's take a look at switch statements in action. This is switch_01.php, which you can find in the chapter 3, 03_04 folder of the exercise files. Line 2 defines a variable called name, and then name is passed to the switch statement that begins on line 4, and the statement displays different strings depending on the value of name. The first string is displayed, it's compared only against one case, Arthur Dent. The second string is displayed if any of the following three cases match, Marvin, Paranoid Android, or Robot, and if nothing matches, then the default is displayed. So if we load this into a browser, it displays I could never get the hang of Thursdays. Name is Arthur Dent, that matches the first case. We echo I could never get the hang of Thursdays, and then break out of the switch statement, so everything else is ignored. So let's try this with a different value for name. We'll have robot, save, and then reload the page in the browser. And now we're getting Marvin complaining about the terrible pain in his diodes. Didn't match Arthur Dent, didn't match Marvin or Paranoid Android, but it did match robot. We echo and then we break. So if we try that with a different value, say Marvin, and then reload, we get that same terrible pain in the diodes because we're matching against this case. So we're still displaying the second string. But if we change name to a value that isn't in the switch statement, say Zaphod, and reload, then that default, is that really a piece of fairy cake, is displayed. Let's go back to the original name, which was Arthur Dent. And I want to show you what happens if you forget to use break. So I'm going to comment out break on line 7 and also on line 12. Save and then reload the page in the browser. And all three strings are displayed. What's happened here is we've matched Arthur Dent. We echo that. There is no break, so we just continue on executing all the code. Even though Marvin, Paranoid, Android, and Robot don't match, we echo that, and then we echo the last default statement. So it's extremely important to remember to use break to keep the different parts of the switch statement separate. Now, although this is a trivial example of a switch statement, it does illustrate some important points. Each case is matching only a single value. Unlike the examples earlier in this chapter, we can't check both the day of the week and the value of name at the same time. So a switch statement doesn't have the equivalent of the AND operator, but it does have the equivalent of the OR operator, because these three cases that we've got here, Marvin, Paranoid, Android, and Robot, they are alternatives that we can use. So it's the equivalent of the OR operator. The value that follows the case keyword must be a simple data type, such as a number, string, or a boolean. You can use comparison operators in a switch statement, but you need to be careful. Let's take a look at this other file, switch_02.php, which is also in the exercise files for this video. It uses a switch statement to calculate whether to add a delivery charge to the total. But if we test this in a browser, we get this syntax error, an unexpected less than symbol on line 6. So here on line 6, that's where we're using the less than symbol. Although we're passing total to the switch statement, we can't just say less than 50. What we need to do is to have a complete expression. We need to say case total is less than 50, and the same with each of the cases. We always need to have the complete comparison, and then this will create a Boolean which will either be true or false. So if we save that and reload the page in the browser, we now get that the total including delivery is 60.99. So what we've done is we've looked at the total. It's 55.99. It's not less than 50, so we've gone through to the next one. It is less than 100, so it's worked out the total including delivery is delivery divided by 2, and we're also using this combined operator here. We'll be dealing with those in the next chapter when we look at doing calculations with PHP. So let's see what happens if we change this to 155.99, save that and reload. And this time we get the total free delivery, and it's the same value, 155.99, because all we're doing is we're displaying total free delivery and the value of total. So that's how you use a switch statement. It matches a simple value such as a string, number or Boolean, and then executes the remaining code either until it comes to a break statement or until it gets to the final curly brace. The most common error with switch statements is forgetting to add break at the end of a block of code. As with all conditional control structures in PHP, you need to make sure the conditions are in a logical order. Only the first condition that evaluates to true will be used. All the others will be ignored, even if they're also true.